Awesome. Waiting. All right, so let's just go over what we're going to do today. First, again, I want to welcome you for coming. Thank you for coming to this session. I know it's taken a lot out of your day, and we're all super busy. So thank you so much for being here. I want to remind us all that we are in a carpentry space. And so with that, we are all agreeing to abide by our code of conduct. And if you have any questions about that, or you've never heard of the code of conduct, what on earth did I agree to? Feel free to send me a message and we can talk about that. But what it basically means is this session, we're going to talk about a lot of things that may bring up stories in your own personal life that may have brought up challenges, things that you struggle with, things that are important to you. And so with that, we want to make sure that we're respectable, that we're speaking with inclusive language, and that we're just treating everybody right. And next thing I want to know is who's in the room. And so rather than, actually we have a small enough group. I was expecting there to be a huge group and we were going to break out. But since we have a small enough group, I do want to hear from everyone. And so with that, I want you to tell me where you are in the world and something that you're proud of. And it doesn't have to necessarily be about data science or coding or research. It can be anything. So something that you're proud of and where you are in the world, whatever that question means to you. So we're going to start with Talisha. And while you're talking, I'm going to share my screen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Talisha. I am in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I am most proud of my two daughters. They're awesome and a lot of fun, and I am proud to be a mom.
Thanks, Talisha. Daniela.
Hi, everyone. I'm Daniela. I'm currently in Portland, Oregon. And one thing that I've been proud in the past year is that I think we are successfully doing co-leadership with two other women on a project that I started with one of them. And it's been a lot of work, but I think that trust really pays off. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm in Seattle, Washington at the eScience Institute. I am proud of a lot of things, hard to narrow down. But I guess I'm really proud of my dog living till he's 15, and I hope he lives a long time more.
So do I. Thank you. Is it John? I need to look and see on the Etherpad. AJ?
Oh, hi. Yeah, this is Ajay.
Ajay, thank you.
Hello. Yeah, so I am also in Seattle, Washington. And it's a very tricky question. I don't know what I'm proud of, but I made a switch from industry to academia, I guess. So that could be worth it, I guess. So yeah, I'm glad to be. Yeah.
It's great to meet you.
Yeah.
Manisha?
Hi, everyone. My name is Manisha Sane. I am based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the United States. And what I'm proud of, I guess, right now is my son. His kindergarten graduation is tomorrow. And it sounds like a tiny thing, but it's been such a big, a very emotional time for our family. So we're very excited.
You deserve to be excited about that. Elizabeth?
Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth. I am currently in Davis, California, but I reside in Sacramento, California in the US. And I am very proud of my parents. They have had a really rough year, and they are just my heroes for their strength and resilience and ability to continue to find joy in a life that has been really difficult recently.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Chris?
Hi. Hi, this is Chris. I'm in San Francisco, California, and I am proud to be on step 2 of my instructor training path. So yeah, I'm actually quite proud of that.
I'm proud of you, Chris. Eric?
Hi, this is Eric Jankowski. I'm in Boise, Idaho, and that's in the United States. Apparently my camera is not working right now, even though the interface says it is, and I'm really proud of my sons. The older one, who's 4.5, rode up a really steep hill on his bike the other day and like would not quit, and it was super cute.
Oh yeah. Thanks, Eric. Martin? There we go. I unmuted you.
Hello. Hi. I'm Martin. I'm calling from Stockholm, Sweden. I'm calling you from my home, and I have my family here, and I'm really proud of them. And I'm also proud over my ability to sing, actually. So I'm singing choir. So I recently started, and I seem to have some talent. So I'm proud of that. So hello, everybody.
It's so great to meet you. I don't know if you know this, but no, I'm just kidding. I also like to sing. So I'm going to follow.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Cher.
Hey everyone, I am Cher. I'm located in Detroit, Michigan. And y'all, I am so excited about oatmeal. I made this bomb oatmeal yesterday, y'all. And normally I could never get this consistency that I wanted. But yesterday it came out to the right consistency. And oh my goodness, it was so good. I think I'm on the verge of being an expert at being an oatmeal maker, y'all.
Consistency is very important with oatmeal. That's all I'm going to say about it. Awesome. And I thought I saw Chris Erdman, but I think maybe he got disconnected. So if he comes back, we'll have him introduce himself. Wonderful. Okay, let's get started. I'll share my screen again. Perfect. Okay, so we know who's in the room. There we go. Before we get started talking about equity, inclusion, accessibility, I think it's important to do a little bit of jargon busting. And for those of you who were at CSV conference or who may have seen my keynote, I should give you a quiz on what our terms mean, but I won't give you a quiz. But I want to make sure that we all are on the same page with these terms, because it seems that a lot of these terms we kind of just throw in grant applications and we talk about them, but do we really know what they mean in the context of the carpentries or the work that we're doing in the open science, open data space? And so I want to take a moment to do a little jargon busting, meaning define what the terms mean so that when we have conversations going forward, we can all know that we're talking about the same thing. And so the first term is diversity. And what I mean by diversity as it relates to the carpentries is individual or social group differences that can be engaged in the service of learning. So a lot of times we hear and talk about diversity in terms of gender identity, race, and ethnicity, but you can have a group full of people in the room who are the same race, but they can still be very diverse because they may have individual or social differences that can all be engaged in the way that they interact with one another. There we go. The second term is equity. And this term I love to talk about because I think for so long we focus on equality, or a lot of people who do diversity and inclusion work focus so much on equality. Equity is creating access to and participation in programs to close participation gaps in our community. And so the best way that I've seen to describe equity is with this graphic. And can everyone see this, or can you? Okay, great. And so on the left, and just so you know, I'm sorry, I can't see what's in the chat. So if you have a question and you need me to stop, please just unmute yourself and let me know. And so when we think about equality, it's really about sameness or being fair. And by that, you're giving everyone the same thing. But what we have to realize is that not everyone comes from the same place or has had the same opportunities in order to achieve. And so equity is really about giving people what they need to succeed, not kind of a scripted recipe for everyone in the community. And by achieving equity, we can have more participation from diverse communities, and we can achieve more overall, especially as it relates to making an impact in this space. When we talk about inclusion, it's the active, intentional, and ongoing engagement of diverse people and communities. And one of the best definitions of inclusion is from Verna Myers. And she says, diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. So a lot of times we feel like, okay, I've invited, diverse people to the room. I have them in my workshop, but when they get there, do they feel like they can actually participate in ways that are meaningful to them? Or do they feel like I'm only in this room because there needed to be, a person of a diverse background? Okay, so it's not only about inviting them to the room, but making sure that they have access to the opportunities and they can contribute in ways that are important to them. And the last term that I want to cover is accessibility. And what I mean by that is the usability of a product, service, environment, or facility by people with the widest range of capabilities. So a lot of times we think about accessibility only from the perspective of access ramps, for those who are in wheelchairs, or other accessibility accommodations like captioning and things like that, which is very needful. But accessibility can be expanded much more than only those things. So how can we design our programs, our curriculum, even the way we have meetings, so that there are multiple pathways of engagement, right? So even for this meeting, right now we're using Zoom, a video conferencing platform, but in order to attend this meeting, you need to have a strong internet connection, a webcam, things like that. So what are some other ways that we could offer these types of opportunities? We have, for that specific example, we also have an audio option if you want to just call in. And you can see the phone numbers down on line 727, I believe, of the Etherpad. So these are all things that we should think about if we ultimately want to. Was there a question?
I think somebody just joined and isn't muted yet.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, I think they're muted now. I think it's Mark. Hi, Mark. All right. So before I move on, I want to stop sharing and see your faces and see what are your overall impressions about those terms, anything that I just talked about, any initial thoughts that you want to share with the group. And if you would like to raise your hand, you can just put hand in the chat. Otherwise, I'll keep going. Share.
Yes, what I like most is that when you define this or break it down, it makes us think about everything that we do involving inclusivity, accessibility. So, once I look at these words and see the definitions, I'm thinking about, as the workshop coordinator, how accessible are these things? But even beyond that, because we have been pushing equity, inclusion, accessibility, I tend to see it now in my everyday life. I attended a workshop yesterday, and they were transcribing the webinar as well. So I was like, oh my gosh, I need to send that in, because that's something that maybe we could do for accessibility to ensure that it's actually transcribing for those who may need to read. So just making sure that it's on the forefront of everything that we do helps us to make sure that we're conscious of it at all times.
Absolutely. And I want to say one more thing about that as well. We can't do it all at once, and we may not do it right the first time. But I think being intentional and just being upfront and honest and saying, we care about this. We know that it may not be right at this moment, but we want to get better is very important as well. So a lot of times when we try to execute a plan around, diversity and inclusion, we want to jump all in and we expect results immediately, and it's just not always the case. So just keep that in mind too. Any other? Yes, Daniela.
Just real quick, I love that quote, and I was trying to remember the first time that I also I heard it recently, and it was Tatiana Mack. She's a diversity and accessibility designer focused a woman here in Portland, and she wrote diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being invited to dance, and justice is actually throwing the party. And so I've been thinking more and more about that as I also try to do kind of obviously humbling, looking at what you're doing to try to do it in our own project, and asking myself is well, am I actually the person that should be doing this specific work? And how can I actually build some partnerships that are meaningful to both parties and really help each other in a way that I would never be able to do by myself. And so it's, anyway, so thanks for that and the reminder.
You brought up some very important points too, in terms of, am I the right person to do this work? That sometimes the answer may be no. It may be something that you're passionate about, but you may not be the right person. And it's okay to say, I think this is important, but I'm not the right one to do it. I want to find someone else who can do it or who can partner with me. So great point. Awesome. All right, let me get back to the presentation because we only have a couple more slides and then you're going to do some work. So why are we doing this work? I mentioned at the beginning, this call is about, we are currently developing an equity, inclusion, and accessibility roadmap for the Carpentries, meaning how can we improve all of our programs, from our instructor training, the way we recruit trainers, the way we include instructors, the way we offer lesson maintenance, to our membership program. I mean, there's so many areas of the Carpentries. How can we assess and improve equity and inclusion and accessibility? So that's what we're doing. We're creating this roadmap. But why? Why are we doing this work? This is just a little bit of the feedback. I mean, we receive feedback on a daily basis from trainers, from instructors, from our learners about ways that we can improve or things that have troubled them or things that were barriers to their participation. So for example, I already mentioned a lot of our community meetings require the use of Zoom, but this may not be an accessible way to meet for some communities who maybe have low bandwidth issues, for example, or maybe they don't have a laptop or a computer with a webcam. In some communities, Slack and GitHub are actually banned. So how can community members contribute to conversations or to our lessons if they don't have access to these platforms? In our surveys, we've done at least 4 iterations on our surveys for the demographic questions. So we ask about gender identity, especially for the US workshops. We ask about gender identity and ethnic racial identity. But the way we ask these questions has been, it has not been correct in the past. And so how can we improve our surveys such that when someone reads the question, they feel like they are included in this question? What about our workshop fees for certain communities who may not be able to afford our workshop fees? And then the checkout process in general, is it as accessible as it can be? We've had several iterations on our checkout process to improve it, but how can we look at our checkout process and look at the completion rate for our checkout process and see if there are ways that it can be improved? So again, these are just a few points of feedback that we've received from community members. But with that, we have had major success in my opinion, in my humble opinion, we've had major success as it relates to improving in equity and inclusion. So for example, we've revised our code of conduct documentation for transparency. So now it's extremely clear how the code of conduct is handled, who receives the reports, what happens when a report is filed, etc. Library Carpentry was onboarded as a lesson program. We're so proud of that. So this is opening our reach to more communities, not just those who are, solely software and data focused, but opening it to more and broader communities. We've omitted our self-organized workshop fees. We've updated our privacy policy to make sure all of our community members' information is safe. Our mailing lists were moved to topic box last year to make it easier to access information. And then we launched our handbook, and that is our sort of the go-to place for all things carpentries related. So there's a lot that we've been able to do, but of course, there's still a lot of work to be done. And so one thing that we talk about, especially in our staff meetings, is that diversity is our goal. So we think about the definition of diversity, right? Our group differences, social differences that can be engaged in the service of learning. Diversity is our goal. Equity, inclusion, and accessibility is how we get to that goal, right? But this work cannot be done without our community members. We don't want to approach this as we're going to come up with this plan and we're just going to launch it and not talk to anybody in the community about it, not even ask them what they want or what are their experiences. We want to build this roadmap with the community, not for the community. And to do that, I want to start by listening to you. So what I've done is on the Etherpad, I've placed several writing prompts, and I want for us all to take 10 minutes to answer the questions. Now, I do want to say that the Etherpad is public. So if you have a story or a situation that you would rather not be on the Etherpad, please, I still want to know what that is. And I would love it if you could email it to me. But if you don't mind answering these prompts directly on the Etherpad, that way we can all have a look at it, that would be fantastic. So I'm going to just stop sharing my screen because all of this information is on the Etherpad as well. On line 89. So I have several writing prompts. 2 sections. The first is equity and inclusion, and then the second is accessibility. So the first, describe a barrier that has inhibited you from participating in either teaching or organizing workshops, attending workshops, contributing to our lessons, or communicating with or engaging with the broader Carpentries community. If you don't have an answer to all of those questions, that's totally fine. Just answer what you're able to. And then the second question under equity and inclusion is to describe a community you're interested in reaching with Carpentries content or Carpentries workshops. And then the second question or the second section around accessibility is describe a barrier that has prevented you from using our workshop template, our lesson material, our pre and post workshop surveys, or any of our communication channels. And then the second question is to describe, or the prompt is to describe the most convenient avenues to give and receive carpentries related information. What questions do you have about those prompts before we get started? And we will write for 10 minutes.
Do we need to put our names on there, or is it just free for all?
Yes, it's free for all. You do not have to put your names.
Right.
So I'm going to pause the recording now. If you want to turn your camera off and turn it back on when you're finished, that's fine. If you want to leave it on, that's fine too. But I'll pause the recording and then we'll come back in 10 minutes. And I'm going to write as well. I don't know about you, but that was extremely valuable. Even going through and reading a lot of the feedback, I just got some great ideas. There were a lot of things that I didn't realize that people are dealing with in terms of being community members. So before we go into the breakout groups, would anyone like to kind of just out loud talk about any of the points, whether it's teaching, barriers to teaching, barriers to participation, anything that you kind of want to verbally say before we go into our breakout groups? We are all here to listen. Martin, were you trying to say something? Let me unmute you. Or maybe you have to unmute yourself. There we go. Okay. Maybe he wasn't trying to say something. Okay. So thank you so much. Again, this was kind of like my listening tour. So that's kind of why I wanted us to take some time to write some things out, because all of these notes will go off this Etherpad, and well, it's going to be archived, but I'm going to take these notes and incorporate them into some implementation strategies for our roadmap. And so you will hear more information about that coming soon. But the next part of our call is to go into small group discussions. So let me explain what we're going to do next. All right. So in our small group discussions, I've actually added 3 prompts on the Etherpad. Actually, let me stop sharing my screen so I can go to the Etherpad because I forgot what they were. All right, so there's 3 prompts on the Etherpad. This is in line 185. The first prompt is, how is the term underserved community described in your community or where you live or your institution? And what I mean by that is a lot of times hey Eric, we see you. A lot of times we have goals around, we want to reach underserved communities or we want to reach underrepresented communities. But we have taken kind of a US centric approach to that, meaning, in the US, people of color are, underrepresented minorities in the US. That is not necessarily the same for West Africa, for example, right? And so we want to understand in your community or in your institution, what does it mean when someone says, I'm from an underserved community or I'm from a community that is historically underrepresented? Okay. So that's the first question. The second one is, what is one thing that you have learned by participating in the Carpentries? So I don't want to focus on all the things that we need to improve on and all the things that are going bad, right? There's a lot that we're doing that is fantastic. There's so many things that we're doing that is wonderful. And so I want to know those things. What is one thing that you've learned by participating in the Carpentries? And then the last question is, what is one thing that you're still confused about or wish you knew as a community member? Okay, so what I'm going to do is put you into groups of 3 to 4 people. And I want you to discuss these questions on line 185 and then take a few minutes to jot down some notes in the Etherpad as well. And when you come back, I would like to have one person from each group kind of report out on your discussion. So I'm going to do this randomly. Daniela, we love you. Don't worry about that. All right, so I'm going to put you in breakout rooms and I'm going to pause the recording. Here we go. So you should see a button that says join your breakout room and have a good time. And it doesn't have to be every question, just a summary of what came out of your breakout.
Eric? Daniela, do you want to go for it?
I was going to tell Eric, veteran.
This is how you get involved, Daniela.
Fine. Okay. No, it was great, actually. So when we talked about the first questions about like what underserved and underrepresented means in our community, it was very interesting to me to see how again like that is a different term. And so for Eric, it was typically in Boise refers to the Native American communities, but also like the Hispanic population, which is similar, I think, to Karen's environment, and the UC Davis that has made itself a Hispanic serving institution. So I think it's really important to actually, I like that, like making it clear as a mission. In my case, I've been going all over the place just because before coming to the US, nobody ever told me about underrepresented, underserved, and even thought about it in Italy. It's a completely different way of seeing it, and perhaps it's more about class, if I have to think about retrospectively. Here in Portland, to me, it's very much about racial diversity, so like people of color, and obviously that intersects with other kind of diversity, but I've been forced to think more about accessibility, and I'm really happy about it and privileged to have friends that have accessibility issues that actually make me see those problems that I would have never even thought about. So yeah, and struggles with the Carpentries, I obviously don't know because I haven't been part of the community, but it seems like communication could be improved and ways to actually, if I can interpret this correctly, Karen, like connect people that have similar ideas without having to share that with everybody and kind of make that more effective. I hope I summarized it right.
Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that summary. We only have 2 minutes now, so we won't be able to go through each of the groups, but I did want to open the floor for questions. So any questions that you have about anything that we talked about on this call, about the plan going forward, how to stay involved, please ask your questions. And if you look online, 244 in the Etherpad, I did put, you didn't take long, Daniela, don't worry about that. I did put some resources in terms of how to stay involved with this conversation. There's a repository on GitHub. If you're familiar and comfortable with using GitHub, we have a Slack channel. You can send an email to team@carpentries.org, or you can send an email to me directly. So I want to make sure you have those resources. But what questions do you have in general? No questions? Okay, I want to make sure.
I want to get in.
Yes, Margaret, I was going to say.
The question is,
we in Ethiopia and the Ethiopian group, we moved a bit further. After the Carpentries, we now have our monthly art hackathons. And this is quite new. Let's say it's really new, but people like it. And now we have every last Friday a month, somehow for practicing and exercising the art coding. Because the Carpentries, it's a training. And if nothing comes after the training, then all what they have learned get lost. And this was our idea to offer somehow practicing sessions. And these are now to certain topics. We use database from the World Bank so far. And we have guidelines. I can provide the guidelines from the last art hackathon. Yeah, and we work on Slack. And of course, we are not perfect right now. It's quite a training session still, because people are not used to work with databases.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. And you brought up a really great point, you know, how to continue practicing. And I think a few of us wrote that in the Etherpad in terms of barriers, and it's not having the confidence in the skills. So thanks so much for sharing. Margaret is in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa. And I did a training there. So I'm so happy to see you and tell everyone in Ethiopia I said hi, and I ran out of coffee. So I need to get some of that. Okay. We are at time. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for attending. Again, this conversation is not over. I do have a second call at 1 UTC, which is 9 p.m. Eastern. So it's on the Etherpad. If you could share that with your counterparts, because I would love to see more people on that second call as well, and it'll be the same format. But until then, I hope to see you on another call, and I thank you so much for participating. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.